Anne-Marie. So we've got Anne-Marie
Yeah.
Shaw from Building Bridges Foundation. So we donated to Building Bridges last year. We're introduced to it through my sister, Christy, who is a former Army. We'll maybe talk a little bit about her and her experience here as we get into it. But Anne-Marie, why don't you just let our audience know what exactly the Building Bridges Foundation does?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff, for welcoming me to talk about Building Bridges Foundation and what happens here. The Building Bridges Farm is a center of caring for veterans and their families. It was founded and established as a 501c3 nonprofit in 2015, and we operate with a board of directors of 11 people from a variety of vocations that have confirmed their commitment to advancing the mission of the foundation, a mission that was part of those registration papers. And it goes like this. Our mission is to provide a safe space, personal growth through equine assisted activities for veterans and their families, as well as those suffering from trauma and loss and those who are struggling with cognitive and emotional challenges. We have 115 volunteers that have signed up to participate with us here at Building Bridges. Some of them are here once a month, and we value every hour of time that is donated to sustain farm operations. We have some that are here weekly. We have some that are here several times a week, and we have some that just come to help us for the major events. We have 2 major events a year, usually on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And at our last Veterans Day event, that was before COVID, we had 99 named tagged volunteers in place to care for a crowd of 500 people. It was a great time. We also have contract service personnel to do beyond what our volunteers can do. We have a plant manager that's here 4 days a week. And how did it happen? What prompted all of this? Well, as a young boy, Dave Anderson, the founder, the son of a Minnesota farmer, remembers his older brother returning from combat duty overseas, trying to find his way back into North American life. After struggling a few years at home, trapped by alcohol and depression, he took his own life, as did several of his military buddies. Today, we call it post-traumatic stress, and we recognize it as traumatic injury. But then it was called shell shock, and people didn't know how to respond to these veterans. As he grew older, Dave prospered in his business. He kept thinking there must be some healing, there must be a way of recovery to facilitate the lifetime that is yet ahead of returning veterans suffering from PTSD. In 2011, his wife Anita passed away, and he was left wondering how he could best use the farm. By 2015, he decided to begin Building Bridges Foundation, where veterans could come to receive healing through equine-assisted therapy, a non-traditional therapy with equine and mental health specialists at no cost to the veterans or their families.
Well, that's amazing, Anne-Marie. We're going to dig into all of
amazing.
that, but it really is. And I speak from family personal experience. When you say extension of family, my sister attends Building Bridges. So we'll talk about that. But right now, what we want to share with our audience is why don't you give us a quick introduction on this video provided by West Point Academy that we're going to play next. Give a brief introduction.
All right. In conversation with West Point Academy administration, they gave us permission to use this video. And so with that, we're taking liberty to include it in this interview here today. U.S. military band that's out of West Point. I think they do a fabulous job of reminding us of the energy and the youth that is put on hold when our veterans head out into deployments. circumstance.
All right,
Oh,
well, let's
say,
we'll cue it up.
can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight
were the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming,
and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air,
gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
That's pretty powerful.
Pretty
That
awesome.
is. I think that's a tremendous way to lean into
Mhm.
our pre-Memorial Day show. So, thank you for sharing that, Anne Marie. That was really great to see all the joint forces come together like that
Yes.
through West Point Academy. So, thank you to you for sharing that with us, and thank you to them for allowing you to use it. We appreciate that. Why don't we dig into a little bit of more about building bridges? So,
Sure.
where is the farm located?
I'm sure you're interested in knowing where we are. Our address is 230 Indian Hill Road, Conestoga, Pennsylvania, of course. It's a 21-acre horse farm that is Building Bridges Foundation. The gifting of the property and facilities are so perfect for this non-traditional kind of therapy, and can best be spoken of as an incredible expression of compassion, purpose, and generosity. It's a good news story. It inspires people in the local community and in distant places. For 30 years, the farm was home to Dave and Anita Anderson and their two sons, Leif and Kurt. The house is Italian architecture and offered abundant space to care for their family and extended family that visited from Italy and Sweden, as well as living accommodation for Anita's parents in the last years of their lives. Dale and I each have an office in the house, and there's office space, a lovely glassed-in sunroom that's designated for volunteers to work in. There's even a resident cat, the most awesome resident cat that has adopted us. The grounds have been created into a remarkable garden and park-like space. The long drive up to the house off Indian Hill Road winds through peaceful lawns, beautiful trees, shrubs, and a variety of flowering bushes and roses. In response to equipping our yard care volunteers, we mapped and counted more than 100 rose shrubs in the yards that welcome visitors along the way. Earlier this year, we had a volunteer out here during the severe COVID days, but he was masked and he came on site and he was cautious, but he took pictures of all the mulch beds. If a volunteer will take on one of those mulch beds in the coming season, it'll be marked with their name. And it's a great kind of way to invest an hour of time, maybe twice a month, to care for a flower garden that will welcome those that come on the property. Further along the drive is a barn, and it offers comfortable stalls to the 6 off-track horses that now serve as therapy partners. The acreage has 5 pastures, and each of the pasture areas has a covered hay feeder, and 4 of them have walk-in shelters for the horses. Our horses love to be outside. They don't spend a lot of time in the barn. They go into the barn at a time of events when then they're available for people to talk to them and meet them and become friends with them. And during veteran cafe hours, then we bring a couple of horses into the barn at that time too. But mostly they're in the barn for when the vet comes to give them their shots and care for their feet and look after their teeth, that kind of thing. There's a 3-bedroom apartment that is on the 2nd floor of the barn, and that houses our manager of farm operations and family. The footprints in the snow during the winter days speak of the many creatures that feel at home here too. It's just pretty amazing. In this time of the year, we have at least 10 cardinals. We never know what yard they're going to show up in on any given day, but they're very visible, and they just live at this place, along with woodpeckers, blue jays, doves, sparrows, and a possum they feed at our bird feeders. Early in our service here, the founder, Dave Anderson, said, "If this initiative makes a difference in one life, it will be worth it." Today, we can review a list of more than 45 participants. I don't usually get a chance to talk this much about building bridges, and I'm going to have to get better at it, because when I start talking about it, it just hits me as to how much and that has happened since we've been here, because of the remarkable space and facility that was in existence. So today we have a list of more than 45 participants that have found renewed hope because of the foundation. The therapy sessions happen on the ground, okay, in a pasture. We're intentional about following the globally recognized EGALA model of equine-assisted therapy. It sets a standard of excellence and safety, and we believe it's the best professional association for us. We want our to be EGALA certified, and if they are, then they have us to the coaches of that organization, and that's just a plus. In every therapy session, there are 4 participants. There is a Pennsylvania State credentialed mental health specialist. That means that they have credentials as a master's degree in mental health studies. And Pennsylvania requires that. So that's a good thing. Our primary mental health provider here is also credentialed in trauma response applications. We have the best. We have the best providers here. A certified equine specialist then is the second person in that therapy huddle. And that person has in-depth understanding of horses and knowledge of how a client, a participant, can interact to facilitate healing. Our equine specialist is also a Marine veteran with 20 years of deployment service. And so he brings sensitivity to that huddle in the therapy session. Then there's the third partner, and that's the horse. And our horses are just amazing friends. They each have distinct moods. They're just like people. They have their own personalities and attitudes. We've seen them stubborn. We've seen them defiant. We've seen them grieving. We've seen them playful. We've seen them fun-friendly, and we've seen them not friendly. It's just the way they are, and they are the most significant person in that therapy huddle. And then there's the participant. And there's lots of evidence that of success in sustainable behavioral changes through equine assisted therapy, more so than traditional talk therapy. Ongoing research shows that positive physical and psychological rest is evident in humans interacting with horses. Things such as decreased blood pressure and heart rate, lower levels of stress, reduced feelings of tension, anxiety, anger, and hostility. often people that have high demand lives benefit from the equine assisted therapy option because they just don't have time or space for people relationships. The therapy sessions
So,
are an
Anne-Marie,
incredible, yeah.
you've
Interrupt
described a
me.
lot
That's
there. So
good.
for the benefit, for the benefit of our
Yeah,
listeners, let's really kind of dig in. So, I mean, you
good.
described the setup of equine therapy with the 4 participants there. Let's kind of take a step
Yeah.
back because I think it's really important for anybody watching, anybody listening to understand how it exactly came about, which you touched on in when you introduced it. Dave Anderson, the founder, his
Yeah.
brother unfortunately passed away from shell shock, what we now know as PTSD, committed suicide. I have that correct. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So,
And there were
I
several
mean,
of his friends. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, this is a very serious thing that goes on. It happens right here in
It
our
is.
backyard. We obviously know it happens on a national level and really worldwide. When you say 45 participants, my sister is one of them. She's active as that 4th participant in the huddle of equine therapy. And I think for our listeners, Anne-Marie, I heard that correctly? The farm was owned by Dave. Is that right? And he has
That's right.
basically turned over the entirety of that idyllic property to
Mhm.
Building Bridges. And now I'm
Yes,
assuming
he
he
has.
lives elsewhere. Is that right?
He does. He lives in Lancaster, but not on
Yeah,
site.
that's really incredible. I mean, I could only hope to one day, through the success of our business, be able to do something like that. But here we have somebody right here in Lancaster County, and I'm positive we're going to discover more people like Dave in Lancaster County.
Mhm.
But
I
right here,
believe that
right
that's
now,
true.
on the
Yeah.
show, yeah, yeah, on the show here, we're highlighting this one person. So, out of a need, just selfless giving to create something that could
Mhm.
replace the path that Dave's brother left unwalked for the remainder, what could have been the remainder of his time here on Earth. So that's just really, really amazing. So you described the kind of the setup. So why, Anne-Marie, why are horses, and I've got some other questions for you, but specifically, why are horses so important in this part of therapy? I mean, why not dogs? Why not some other animal? What is so unique about horses?
Well, it's common knowledge among those that have explored that question that the horse is more aware of body language and more able to participate because of that. That they are sensitive to levels of anxiety, anger, fear, and sadness more readily than some other creatures. When we came, I remember the night we arrived here at Building Bridges, and you have seen pictures of the house, and it was dark, and we came in the house and we didn't know where any of the light switches were. And we were about ready to go back to Willow Street to Kmart and see if it was still open so we could get some of those battery operated things so we could find our way around the house. And we thought, wow, what have we kind of got ourselves into? And the next morning I went outside and walked back to the barn, and I looked around as I walked down the driveway, and the place seemed just empty. And it was really, really still. But there was one horse that had its head out one of the stall windows. And as I walked toward it, I thought, I have to say something to the horse. But I'm a little uncomfortable shouting out to a horse, but I did it anyway. I shouted out, I knew the horse's name, and I shouted, Carmel, you are a beautiful horse. And then I looked to see if anyone was watching because I thought, I really don't want this to be known. And then I went a bit further and I shouted it out again. And that horse didn't bat an eye, just went like this and nodded her head. And I thought, I really don't believe this just happened, and I'm sure not going to tell anybody. Well, since then, all of the horses are my friends. And that's,
Yeah.
I've seen a person come who I don't know what the issue was, but as we walk to the gate, and the horses usually run, okay, to meet us at the gate. And so they came across, they were within 10 feet of the gate, and they just screechingly stopped. And so I understand, I learned that, wow, it's some kind, maybe they felt anxiety or fear from the person that was with me. I didn't say that to that person, but I just know they're very sensitive to the situation. We had a guy in here, a veteran, one morning, and his son came on his own to see him. And the veteran had gone into the office with the provider, and the son said, which one of the horses was my dad with? And so I showed him a cluster of 4 horses, and I said, I pointed out the horse that was part of his dad's session. He went into the field and walked toward that cluster of 4 horses. And they all looked up, but one of them broke away and came towards the son. I don't know whether it been a mannerism, a scent, a resemblance, but somehow that horse knew that there was action with the person that
Wow.
finishing. My mind.
Those are
That's
amazing.
where it happens.
Those are amazing stories.
Yeah.
Anne Marie,
I know.
your passion is incredible, and it shows in these stories. Why are you personally doing this? What's your story with Burning Bridges?
Well, Dale and I got to meet Dave and Anita when we lived in Lancaster. Dale was senior pastor at Peckway Church from 1997 to 2011. And when Anita passed away, Dale was asked to conduct the funeral service. Then in 2017, Mr. Anderson connected with us while we were vacationing in Florida. And we met Charlene, a new life companion today. And we valued this new friend connection, very ably serving as president of the foundation. And he told us at that time we were welcome to be at his chalet in Beaver Creek, Colorado. So we planned a date for that vacation, and we went out there with friends Jay and June Reynolds. And when we were there, Mr. Anderson talked a lot about building bridges and what his hopes were and what he wanted to see happen there. And he thought we should get involved in that mission. So 2 weeks later, he called us and said, I want you to come down and lead the Veterans Day program here at the farm. And when we went down to do that, he said, I want you to come back here for 12 months to set up foundational and administrative programs. And so we started our 12-month stay here on January 18th, 2018, and we're still here. And we would not be here if we didn't see a measure of success. One morning, I remember Dave stopping, and he doesn't stop very often. He just rushes through his days. But every now and then, he'll pause and he'll say, you know, I know that this could not be happening if it wasn't for the intervention of God. I know that. And he also says, he'll show up early some mornings and say, God told me I should take you out for dinner today or take you out for breakfast. But there's just, we really feel like we are purposefully involved in serving this generation and the future, or we would not be here.
I mean, I can speak to that, divine intervention, if you will. My sister, Christy, 80, who's, a client there. She comes for horse therapy there. That's how we got to know one another. 82nd Airborne, air assault qualified. She was I believe it's called MOS, was preventative medicine. She ended up breaking her back on a jump. So she retired medically in 2013, but she's had a rough path,
Yes, she has.
and that's okay for me to share. That's her story, and she shares it willingly. But boy, I'm really glad she found her way home.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am too. I am too. And there are stories like that here. We're not doing this on our own. Okay. Well, I mean, I look at that list of 115 people, and I know that they can't all be here all the time. We've got one woman that signed up and said, I'll be a volunteer. I'll be the popcorn person. I will come to events and I'll make popcorn. I thought, when I get old, this is what I thought. I'm going to be that person. I'm going to be the popcorn woman at all the events I can get to, kind of thing. I mean, that is valuable. You know, the smell of popcorn at an event. That's great. And so we don't do this alone. We do it with partners that have been strategic in helping us achieve our programs and our operational budget and our farm operations. In the past year, we have over 130 donations that came our way to facilitate mission programming and operations. The founder, Dave Anderson, continues to be the most generous supporter. Community response has increased every year. In 2020, our gun raffle team, an organized team, this is amazing to me, an organized team of 15 businessmen, okay, and members of a variety of sportsman clubs, recruit a string of businesses to purchase a gun. And then in November, they have a gun raffle. And in the months in between August and November, they network with another string of businesses to sell the tickets. And last year, that event brought in above $70,000. That's just amazing. And one
That's
of the horse
incredible. Yeah,
handlers, it is incredible. It is.
Yeah, I was fortunate to be there and see it happen. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
We'll continue to talk about how to support you, but just so people understand why the support is so necessary and why volunteering is necessary, how much does equine therapy cost, for a person?
We figure it costs between $2,000 and $2,500 for a person for 10 sessions. And we ask all of the veterans that find their way here to please sign up for 10 sessions and make a commitment to that. So whatever time they choose, please choose a time in the week where you know for the next 10 weeks you can be here at that time. We don't want you to miss a session. And then there will be a bit of an assessment. And if it's helping you, you're welcome to stay on. But please make a commitment to 10 sessions, because we think it takes that long to become comfortable and have comprehension of the benefit of it in your life. And so that seems to work here. And that's the cost for 10 sessions. And at the end of the 10 weeks, what happens sometimes is that a veteran will say, for the next string of sessions, I'd like my partner, my life partner, to come with me. And that's, we're open to that. That's great. That is just
so. So you just heard $2,000, $2,500. I'm sure it's closer on the $2,500 side of things right now, with the prices of most everything going up as of late. So look, if you can donate, I am positive they will. Anne-Marie and the whole crew there will be happy to take a donation from you. You heard her talk about a mulch bed. Okay, talk about 1 hour, folks. This is what this show is about. I mean, we're here using our platform at Gardeners to, invest in the community that supports us. But this is where you listening and watching come in. Go grab a mulch bed. Go work in the barn. Go cut some grass. We understand the financial aspect of it may not just be in the cards for you. But if you've got time, if you find yourself, you feel like I'm watching a little too much TV, or I feel rudderless. I just don't have a motivation, right? Like maybe you can get a little dose of your own therapy, a little release, a little reprieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Connect with the earth. I'm a big believer in that. I've gotten into camping as of late, and I will tell you, I unequivocally feel 100 times better having spent time just out in the woods. So I got a little long in the tooth there, but seriously, when I say grab a mulch bed, Anne-Marie said it. You can help with the mulch bed, keep the ground sound fantastic, sound just idyllic, like it's out of a fairy tale. Go help them, right? Because if we don't, as a community, either monetarily or with our sweat equity in investing in our community, then their costs go up. And so literally your time can make that difference. So we've been putting the information on the screen. Please reach out. All right.
Thank you.
So, Anne-Marie, I rattled off a couple jobs there. Just give us a couple more, maybe 2 or 3 others quickly that people could also volunteer for beyond mulch beds and maybe scooping up stuff in the barn.
Well, recently we've begun construction of an equipment shed to house and care for our equipment. I mean, we have to take care of it. And Willow Valley, and this is the way it plays out, and we think, wow, that's incredible. Willow Valley Retirement Homes gave us 37 truckloads of dirt. Okay, how great is that?
Oh, wow.
So it leveled the land behind the barn. I mean, 37 truckloads of dirt. I don't know what that would be, but I know it would be significant. And then Park Hess, Willow Street trucking business, hauled 37 loads of it out to the farm. Well, that's incredible. And so donations sometimes are money, but they're in-kind kinds of things like that are really helpful. And I mean, if you see Park Hess driving that big truck of his, you just know he loves to be in that truck. So this way he's doing something really great, and he likes it.
Yeah.
Jay Garber Landscaping gives us 40 hours of yard work, yard care a year, and that'll be at the end of the year when there's the most work to be done. And he brings in his yard care workers, and they give a week's work. Jeff Minnick at Tanglewood Golf Club, they give a percentage of their Flag Day golf proceeds. I mean, those are gifts that aren't checks. And then there's you, Jeff, who went back home from that event and sent us a check for $2,000. I mean, that's what happens.
Wow.
That's amazing. That was, I mean, those things really inspire us onward, because that cares for the next veteran. You know, there, you got it right there. The Lancaster Equestrian Club came out here and had one of their meetings. They didn't know what we did. And they're all more savvy at looking after horses and knowledgeable than I am. But they came out here to see what we did. And before they left from their meeting that night, gave us a check for $1,400. That's kind of how it happens. And that's how we grow our network of support. Lancaster Extra Give, too.
Yeah. So what you just, I mean, again, to kind of put a bow on that part for our listeners, I mean, what you really just heard is if you work for a business that has any kind of congruency with what Building Bridges is doing, you know, talk to your ownership, talk to your bosses. A lot of companies are actually, which is good, they're looking for ways to give back to their community, and they just may kind of struggle with where to direct that giving, which is funny to say, but it actually happens. So put this on their radar. Okay. If you've got pickup truck, if you've got power tools, and maybe physically you're not able to get down on your hands and knees in the mulch bed, but you got a little utility trailer, reach out. I'm sure Anne-Marie and Dale will put you to work. Right? Is that, you'll never turn a volunteer away.
No, we don't. We don't turn them away. We want people to engage in doing what they can do, though, using their skills, so a lot of people love gardening, especially in the county. So we like that.
But, we understand you're trying to get the attention from the founders of Home Depot. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was just a very inspirational moment. One day, Dave called and he said, "Anne-Marie, you got to check out this video. It's on Fox News." And I listened, and it was Arthur Blank and Bernie Marcus, co-founders of Home Depot. They're, I think they're both around 90 years old, but they each of them made a pledge commitment of $20 million and they're going to partner with the Gary Sinise Foundation. And they're going to their goal is to establish a string of 20 non-traditional therapy centers across the nation, because they're seeing that the veterans benefit from that experience of non-traditional, not in the clinical setting. And so we connected with the that network, and they asked us what we wanted, and we said, we want you to come to Building Bridges to explore this site, because we believe that we have the capacity to be one of those 20. They're going to have to raise $200 million to do 20 of them. So I'm thinking that here we have a center that is established. We have a capital project on our radar that we're going to have to move slowly on with the price of lumber and everything going up. But it's for building a space that will seat 500 people sitting down. It costs us $6,000 to rent a tent to do that when we have our events here. And we have found approval with the township office for this project, and we look to having that. And with the number of veterans, 32,000 in the county and 100,000 in the Commonwealth, we could have events here with the very best resource people for the veterans. And veterans like being with veterans. There is that experience of deployment, of PTSD issues, all of that. You see it on social media, Vietnam Reflections. Our friend Larry, you probably are part of that. I am privileged to be part of that. 14,000 people in that group on Facebook. Incredible to be part of that network and see how they support each other. And so we feel like we have got a jump start on that non-traditional kind of thing, and we'd like to be part of that, believing that it would strengthen our positioning to serve the county and Pennsylvania, where there are so many veterans.
Yeah.
So that's
well, Anne
what we
Marie,
did.
you were kind to list off your strategic partners that help you achieve your annual budget. As I understand it, it's about $350,000. So that's great. That all of those businesses help. So thank you to them. When we talk about this Home Depot project and their goal of establishing 20 centers across the United States, you never know who's right here in your backyard. So again, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you have any connection to this foundation via Home Depot or the Gary Sinise Foundation, if there's any connection, your cousin's brother's best friend is Gary Sinise's assistant. My goodness, please.
Thank you.
Tag
you.
them.
That
Send
would be
this
great.
along.
Yeah. That's what it takes.
in this
people
day and age,
tagging others.
right?
Yeah.
How hard is that in this day and age?
That's super.
And I gotta think here in this area, we might just have somebody that knows somebody. So that's, again, I having been there, having personally seen it at a personal level, I can speak to you directly, looking at you right now into this camera, that Building Bridges 100% doesn't deserve, they've earned the right to be one of these 20 sites. And I hope the 19 others are just as great. In fact, this might sound a little odd, but as great as Building Bridges is, they're amazing. And I hope that they're the 20th most amazing out of all the sites, because that means there's 19 other amazing sites just as committed.
Yeah. Right.
I want them all to be as amazing as Building Bridges. So that's
sounds
what I
like
would
a
love
big
for them to do. Yep.
That's super.
Yep.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
all that was standing, we're going to shoot for the stars there, but your budget at $350,000 a year. What would you be able to do with a $500,000 budget?
We have the capacity to serve. Our primary mission is the equine assist piece. So we will not be starting other programs until we're at capacity with that. We know that when COVID opens the gates again, when we're not under protocols that restrict anything, we're going to grow again, and we're going to have to bring in another provider team. We just know that, and we're watching. We're looking for qualified people that don't have a long distance to drive, so they can grow with us. They'll maybe start with 2 days a week kind of thing of sessions, but it won't be full time. And that takes a certain kind of commitment, because they will grow with us, and that our current providers are ready to grow with us too. But we need another team as we move toward achieving capacity, and we can be caring for 40 veterans at one time with the facilities and the horses that we have here. That would be over a week. Okay, so we could, yeah. And instead, I mean, it was great that we can report 41 lives have been impacted by building bridges, but think of that hub. And there are ways to do that, you know. And Coatesville Hospital, they have a life veterans hospital. The Coatesville Veterans Hospital has a veteran's life for 3 years. In the second year
Wow.
of their stay there, they should be coming to Building Bridges once a week for therapy sessions, for a day at the farm, because the next year they get a suitcase and they're out on their own. And I believe that they need a time of transitioning in the outdoors, in the freedom of space, not the clinical setting, where they can experience peace and recovery steps. And so I look at us doing that. We're keeping Thursday for that kind of thing. And if we can get a van, we'll have 10 people coming here on one day. Okay, and they'll all get
That's amazing. Yeah.
they'll all get a therapy session. They'll all get be part of a group session. They'll get an hour of volunteer service, and they'll get an hour of free time, and we'll give them a brown bag lunch. I mean, I can get
That's
excited
amazing,
about
Anne-Marie.
that. Yeah.
It's incredible work that you do there. Thanks so much for being on. Each time that we have a nonprofit or charitable organization on Lancaster Connects, we make a donation to them. We can't quite get you to $500,000 today, but we're happy to give the Burning Bridges Foundation $125 from the Lancaster Connects podcast to help do what you do there. So thanks so much for being on. Thanks for sharing all the stories. And again, thanks for doing what you're doing for the people that fight for our country.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
All right.
My pleasure. Thank you
Thank you for joining us.
welcoming
Larry.
me.
Yeah, no problem.
And of course, remember, this show is also available as a podcast. You can find all the links at lancasterconnects.com. Don't forget to like and share this video on Facebook and other social media platforms. Leave a comment. Tell us how we're doing. Give us feedback about the show. Again, that's lancasterconnects.com.